والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this a gathering of maghfirah and rahmah, and a gathering where His angels descend upon us and we're engulfed in His mercy. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for gathering us here on this Friday evening where you could have been doing anything, where learning is an essential component of growing in your deen and growing in your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and building that relationship with your Rabb. Now, we're going to be discussing Valentine's Day today, inshaAllah. No? Okay. I was just testing if you're awake. So it's not the Jummah khutbah. We will have some discussion. If I say anything funky, you can call it out. Today was Valentine's Day. That's why all of the couples are missing. It's just a single. No, I'm joking. Allahu Akbar. You can't do these types of jokes on the minbar, so I'll take them all out here, inshallah. It's a big blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed us to come so far in Sha'ban, and we're so close to the month of Ramadan. Allahumma balighna Ramadan. And there's the famous saying, if you don't prepare, if you don't plan, you plan to fail, right? So we have this concept within us that we should start thinking about the month of Ramadan, and we should start planning for it and get excited about it. And the parallel I make to this, and I'm sure we've all done this, is when we go for a road trip or a vacation that we're very much looking forward to, right? You're going to your uncle's house and they live in Boston, and you're so excited because as a child growing up, my uncle lived in Boston, and I knew that's where we'd get the best ice cream. That's where we'd have the most fun outings. So when you're planning and looking forward to that, you start counting the days off. You start thinking, as an adult, if you're planning the vacation yourself, what route am I going to take? How many days am I going to be there? What restaurant are we going to stop along the way? These are things that happen when you're looking forward to something. Now I ask you, if you're not planning, are you really looking forward to that Ramadan in that same way? Or is it just lip service? I'm looking forward to Ramadan, but you haven't done anything to prepare for it. So the purpose of tonight, inshallah, is to get us on that track of planning and execution so we can be amongst those who truly are looking forward to that month of Ramadan. And this discussion begins with the ayah of the Quran that's very famous, and we know this is the place in the Quran that Allah talks about fasting. Which surah is it in? Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the obligation of fasting. What surah in the Quran? Ya Jama'ah, Surah Al-Baqarah. How many times does Allah mention Ramadan in the Quran? 10, 15, 20? How many times does Allah mention the word Ramadan in the Quran? Just once. Just once. That's enough to bring it back to the epicenter. And in this very short few verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala captures the essence and importance of Ramadan. And there are other verses that talk about fasting, but this is the crux in Surah Al-Baqarah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Ramadan specifically. But before talking about Ramadan, Allah talks about fasting. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam. And what's the next part? Kama kutiba. Just as it was prescribed upon you, O believers, O Muslims, prescribed upon you is fasting, just as fasting has been prescribed upon the nations before you. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Every khutbah going forward will have this ayah repeated. It's in Surah Al-Baqarah, and inshallah you've memorized it. What I want to focus on is to begin this discussion. كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. Realize all of the nations before us had a way of fasting. This is not new for the Muslim Ummah. This is something that's been passed through generations from the time of Adam alayhi salam, from the earliest of Shari'ahs. And every nation has a way of celebrating. Independence Day, the signing of the Declaration. We have so many different ways as a nation in America that we celebrate. Think about it. As a nation, as a Muslim ummah, the way we celebrate the beginning of the deen, the beginning of Islam, is by fasting. The way we celebrate our foundation is, we started with the Quran, right? Allah revealed the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad, and it started in a cave, Ghar Hira, with Jibreel alayhi salam, and it was in which month? Ramadan. Ramadan. The way we celebrate as a nation, right? This beautiful beginning to the religion is by fasting and having this beautiful month of Ramadan. This is more virtuous and more amazing than fireworks and the craziest of celebrations, more amazing than the Philadelphia parade that happened for the Eagles. This celebration is truly a celebration of our taqwa, of our obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're going to have many khutbahs about taqwa, so I'll save that for the khatib, but I want to mention something that the khatib probably won't talk about on the khutbah because it's too mundane. It's too basic, but it's so interesting. Taqwa and fasting are interrelated. Our soul is heavenly. Our soul is it's not from the dunya. Our soul was not created in this physical realm of dunya. Our body is. Our body, if you touch your flesh, it's from dirt, turab. You're made from dirt. But what's very interesting, the more you decrease of the dunya, the better your soul feels. The more you deprive your physical body, we're not supposed to hurt ourselves, all right? We're Muslims, we believe in ummatan wasata, we're a middle nation, but the more you deprive yourself as a human being, the stronger your ruh feels. The closer you are able to feel to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more taqwa you're able to have in that moment. That's the purpose of fasting, right? To bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you deprive yourself of food, water, and intimacy, depriving your physical body, there's a level of closeness that's achieved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that can't be obtained elsewhere. And what's also interesting, just by fasting, you have so much taqwa. You might be thinking to yourself, I'm a bad Muslim. I'm a nobody, I don't do much. But the fact that you fast means you have so much taqwa. You have so much piety, and I want you to understand that. There's a bottle of water in front of you. You as a Muslim, don't drink it out of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commandment. God told me don't drink the water, and you're not doing it. That is taqwa. That is God consciousness. And for you, my dear respected brother or sister, to fast, realize you have a strong amount of taqwa, and praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving that strength in you. Now, when we say, and we come to these discussions, we're always looking for tips and tricks and hacks. What can I say? What small deed can I do that will give me this huge amount of reward? What quick dua can I memorize and that will set me up for the whole of Ramadan? What time can I set aside and that will be enough for me in Ramadan? I won't have to spend hours and hours of ibadah. We're sometimes looking for something extraordinary, a secret. And there are many stories amongst the Sahaba that they would do the same with the Prophet ﷺ. They would ask Ya Rasulullah, what's the best of ibadahs? What's the best of du'as? Right? This is not a negative way of thinking. It's just a human process that we go through where we're looking for the best route possible. We're looking for the easiest way to navigate this upcoming endeavor. Now, on a very interesting incident, the Sahaba would, after the demise of the Prophet ﷺ, they would also do this with the senior Sahaba and the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen, the mothers of the believers, specifically Aisha radiallahu anha. They would go up to her and ask her, Ya Ya Aisha, O mother of the believers, how was the character of the Prophet ﷺ? كَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنِ. His character was the Qur'an. And in another instance, they asked, how was the night prayer of the Prophet ﷺ? How was the night prayer of the Prophet ﷺ? And her answer is very beautiful. She says, لا تسأل عن طولهن وحسنهن. Don't ask about their beauty, and don't ask about how long they were and how beautiful they were. It wasn't about the number that he was doing specifically. It was about the quality that he was doing them with. And what's amazing about Ramadan is you're doing the same exact acts of worship that you're supposed to be doing the rest of the year. You're supposed to be controlling your desires. You're supposed to be praying in the night. You're supposed to be reciting Quran. We're supposed to have that dua, that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the entire year. But we're asked in the month of Ramadan to go above and beyond, to do that and some more, to do that and some extra. It's all about the quality. Yes, we want to increase in the quantity as well, but the focus, as Aisha radiallahu anha points out, is on the quality of it. As we prepare ourselves, we should already be focusing on what those actions can be, thinking about them, implementing them now. You're not going to start in Ramadan if you hadn't started now. The idea is you warm yourself up, you get your body ready, you start and initiate now so that when Ramadan comes, you're already in motion. In sports, you're going to get severely injured if you think you're going to jump onto the basketball court and just start 5-on-5. You're going to get injured. What do you have to do beforehand? It's not Jummah khutbah, I can ask. What do you have to do? And if you're a little older, stretch. Lazim. It's like, you're going to be in problematic area if you don't warm up and if you don't stretch. In the same way, in Ramadan, our hearts are similar, right? We have to warm up. We have to stretch. Get our bodies adjusted. Get the blood flowing. Get the spirituality flowing. Now, again, the month of Ramadan is a time when we are going to exert ourselves more. We are going to strive for more. And that's the objective of this month, because there's extra barakah available to us. The shayateen are locked up. We have more available to us at our fingertips. The community is with us. There's barakah in that. We're going to be able to achieve more. The Prophet ﷺ, Ibn Abbas tells us in a beautiful narration, كَانَ أَجْوَدُ النَّاسِ, that the Prophet ﷺ was the most generous of people, the most amazing of people. And then specifically in Ramadan, he was even more generous. Like a blowing wind. You can't quantify this wind. If I was to sit here and tell you, I think I feel, X amount of particles hitting me, it's ridiculous. I don't have a microscope, I have nothing, it's just particles around me, right? This is how the mercy, the generosity of the Prophet ﷺ was in the month of Ramadan. It's unquantifiable. Unquantifiable. The idea being here, again, it's about living and rising to our full potential. Knowing that this is our opportunity to maximize as best as possible. And the Sahaba, as we mentioned, were asking these questions about the tricks and tips. So were the Tabi'een. Who are the Tabi'een? From the back row, Ya Shabab. Who are the Tabi'een? We know who the Sahaba are, right? Who are the Sahaba? That's an easier one. Yes. The Prophet's companions, right? I'll give a hint. The Tabi'een are one step lower. So what does that make them? Yes, they are the generation right after the Sahaba. The Sahaba saw the Prophet ﷺ. The Tabi'een saw the Sahaba. They didn't meet the Prophet ﷺ. The Tabi'een were known for a quality of exerting themselves in ibadah. Of course, the Sahaba, they did a huge amount of ibadah. But the generation after them, I don't mean it in a negative way, but they had a feeling. I was going to say complex, but that might be taken negatively. They had a feeling that, hey, the generation before us saw the Prophet ﷺ, they're better than us. We have to make up for it. We have to do more. Why? Their virtue is secured. They met the Prophet ﷺ. We can never rise to their level. That's why we have to go above and beyond. We have to do so much more in ibadat. We have to fast so much more. We have to do so much more qiyam, so much more siyam. This was the mindset of the tabi'een. In one specific incident, the tabi'een, they gathered around Abdullah bin Mas'ud. What do we know about the great companion Abdullah bin Mas'ud? What do we know about the great companion Abdullah bin Mas'ud? Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anh was known for his recitation. The Prophet, not the Prophet, but the Sahaba said about him, whoever wants to listen to the Quran the way it was revealed in its pristine, perfect form, man sarrahu, whoever wants to hear the Quran the way it was recited by the Prophet, go and listen to Abdullah bin Mas'ud. What an honor. This individual, this Sahabi radiallahu anhu, Abdullah bin Mas'ud, right? He was asked by the Prophet to recite Quran. What an honor. And the Prophet was so moved by his recitation that he came to tears. He came to tears. Abdullah bin Mas'ud was approached by the Sahaba, by his tabi'een. So they asked him, كيف كنتم تستقبلون شهر رمضان؟ كيف كنتم تستقبلون شهر رمضان? How did you, O Sahaba, how did your generation receive the month of Ramadan? It's, amazing question. It's why we're here today. The Tabi'een are asking the senior Sahaba, what did you guys do for Ramadan prep? How did you prepare for the month of Ramadan? And Abdullah bin Mas'ud's reply is spectacular. He says, never ever ever would any of us allow the hilal of the month of Ramadan to receive the hilal of Ramadan, and that we made sure that this never happened, that we had a grain, mithqal, dharrah, we didn't have an atom's weight of hatred toward our Muslim brother or sister. We made sure that before the hilal of Ramadan was upon us, we made sure that we cleansed our hearts, and we made sure that we did not have the smallest amount of hatred or animosity or dislike for any of our Muslim brothers or sisters in the community. Allahu Akbar. If I ask you, go pray tahajjud for 30 days straight, some of you might find that easier than picking up the phone and dialing that brother or sister up that you had an argument with. If I told you to give $5,000 in charity in the month of Ramadan, you might find that easier than going up to that Muslim brother or sister and saying, I'm sorry. This is the reality of the situation. The advice Abdullah bin Mas'ud is giving is heavy. It's hard. It's difficult. I just read it off to you like it was nothing. But the advice Abdullah bin Mas'ud is giving, not just to these tabi'een, now to the ummah at large. Let go of conflicts. in preparation for this beautiful month of Ramadan. I told you we're going to talk about Valentine's Day. I hope that no one is in an argument with their spouse. No one is in an argument with their loved ones. But there are conflicts that may have arisen with your cousin, with your aunt, with your uncle, with your chacha, your your khala. There may have been a tussle, a back and forth, an argument that may have happened between your friends, your colleague, your co-worker, your community member, the masjid president, inshallah not the imam, but anyone within the community. That may have happened where you got into a bickering with them and you've held it in your heart. Dear respected brother, dear respected sister, O Muslim, this is the time to let go of that. In our khutbah today at the Khair Community Center, that's what one of the hadith that were quoted were. That holding baghda, this anger, animosity, it leads to halak. It leads to your destruction. For your dunya and your akhirah. How does anger lead to your destruction in the dunya? How does that doesn't make sense to me. In the akhirah, there's hadith about it. Khalas, we can understand. But how does anger lead to my downfall in the dunya? Ya Jama'ah, you guys are close to me, that's why I can ask these questions, because we can discuss openly here. Ya Shabab, why does having anger make it worse off for me in this world? What's the downside of having anger? You lose your relationship with your loved ones. Yeah. You got to be a little bit louder. It clouds your judgment. Anger builds a cloud in front of your eyes. It's haziness. You can't decipher what is goodness anymore. Because let me go to the masjid. Oh, so-and-so is going to be there. Never mind, I'm not going for iftar. Forget it. You just lost out on so many good deeds praying in jama'ah. Right? Reciting Quran in the masjid, you lost all that. Why? Shahna, baghda, anger, animosity, hasad. Right? This burns away deeds, burns away blessings and barakah. These relationships are sanctified by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With your loved ones specifically, silatul rahim, maintaining these ties, it's wajib, it's not optional. I don't get to choose. This is from divine revelation that I have to maintain these ties. It's divine revelation. My dear respected brothers and sisters, I want everyone to pull out their phone. It's not the Jummah khutbah, pull out your phone, let's go, Bismillah. Yeah, please, min fadlik. Al-Jawad Musa'id, we're going to write down one relationship that we can fix in your notes. Don't text it to anyone by accident. One relationship that needs to be fixed before the month of Ramadan. The hilal of Ramadan is upon us. Taking the advice of Abdullah bin Mas'ud seriously. May Allah bless all of us that we have zero relationships that are in turmoil, right? But there might be that one person that you're not sure where you stand with. It might have been 2 years ago, 3 months ago, you guys just say salam and turn the other way. Right? What relationship do you need to work on? If you're like Shaykh Islam, you have nothing to worry about because you smile with anyone, you have so amazing akhlaq. But who is one person? Write that down. Write that down. Whatever does, I studied accountancy at Temple University. It was all over the business school. Every class would start with this, an accounting class. Whatever does not get accounted for, doesn't get done. Whatever doesn't get accounted for, doesn't get done. In the business world, you write down every single lame step of the process. You're just like, isn't that obvious? Don't you know you have to turn on the light switch? But that's in the SOP. That's in the SOP. Why? it's accounted for, it gets done. No one has questions. We're going to write this down so we have accountability for ourselves, that before the month of Ramadan comes, I'm going to shoot that brother a text. I'm going to shoot, if you're a sister, you can shoot another sister a text. Or if it's a haram relationship, get out of it before Ramadan. Right? This is the month of rahmah, the month of barakah, the month of the Quran. The best way to prepare for it is to make sure we come to it with the qalbun salim. With the qalbun salim. There will be many more talks about the month of Ramadan. My humble advice to you is treat it as if you're hearing about Ramadan for the first time. Treat it as if these are direct words of the Prophet ﷺ and they're new to you. The month of Ramadan did not come, it was not legislated specifically in the very tail end of the Prophet's life. That's not the case. There were a number of years that the Prophet ﷺ fasted with the Muslim Ummah. Everyone's following along so far. This is an important point. This is how you get from here to here in your relationship with the month of Ramadan. The Prophet ﷺ had a number of years with the companions for the month of Ramadan. We're good? How many times do you think the Prophet recited these verses? يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم. How many times do you think the Prophet ﷺ recited the verses شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن? How many times do you think the Prophet recited the hadith من صام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا? How many times do you think the Sahaba reverberated and repeated those same verses and those same ahadith to each other in different circles? Tons of times. Countless times. Do you think any of the companions ever went, I already heard that one before, I did that last Ramadan, I remember that from 2 years ago, I'm going back to my Twitter feed, my X feed, going back to Instagram, let me zone out. Did that ever happen? Did the Sahaba ever say, this is old news, I already know this? In the way we treat ilm, unless it's extraordinary and spectacular in a new hadith, it's boring. That's not how we're supposed to approach knowledge in ilm. The more excitement you show to it, the more benefit you will get. The more you focus and reiterate and do tadabbur, the more realizations and new openings and futuhat you will have in your own understanding. My dear respected brothers and sisters, prepare for the month of Ramadan, make a list. More important than the list of things you should be doing is the things that you want to stay away from. We all still have our phones out, all right? Let's write down 3 things that we want to stay away from in the month of Ramadan. حاسبوا قبل أن تحاسبوا. Take account of yourself before you are accounted for. I'm going to do it with you. I didn't write these down yet. Right? This is my Ramadan prep. What are 3 things? Taqwa is staying away from the maharim, staying away from what Allah has forbidden you from. What are some things in your life? Inshallah, we're not committing any major sins. If we are, write that down. Write it. No one's seeing this. This is between you and Allah. But the reason I'm having you write it down is because there's accountability then. There's thought that goes into click, click, click. And it's not like a moving target. If you've been to the shooting range, you know it's much easier to hit a still target. It's much easier to hit a still deer than it is to shoot a flying duck. It's a reality of things. If we have the target written down, we can't keep changing it on ourselves. So I'll give everyone, this will be the end of the khatira, the reminder, inshallah. We'll jot 3 things down. And mashallah, some brothers already put their phones down, so you guys are quick. 3 things that we want to take away and remove from our lives so we can approach. And we start this now. Ya Jama'ah. Don't wait for the month of Ramadan. This process begins now. You cleanse your heart, you receive istiqbal of the Ramadan in the best of ways. We ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us tawfiq and guidance and allow us to reach the month of Ramadan in the best of ways. We ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expiates from our hearts any anger, animosity that we may have against our Muslim brothers or sisters. We ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us a qalbun salim, a pure heart that's free from any rancor and evil. We ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviates the difficulties of the ummah all around the world. We ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviates the anxieties and difficulties and challenges facing our local community. We ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite our hearts, keep us together, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to reach the month of Ramadan. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان اللهم اجعلنا من الراشدين اللهم بلغنا رمضان اللهم بلغنا رمضان اللهم بلغنا رمضان سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Questions, comments, concerns, additions? Alhamdulillah, we have an active audience, so if anyone does have any questions, we can address them together, or if you want to speak in private as well, we can answer any questions bi'idhnillah. Ahsanallahu alaykum.
Suggestion to, you mentioned about accountability, right? So the 3 things that you want to stay away from, maybe share them with someone that you trust.
Yes.
Closely. That creates accountability.
Yes. This is an extra layer, and I highly, highly recommend it. If you're able to, share those 3 things with someone that's close to you, right? Your spouse, a sibling, a close friend, the imam, right? Share these things you want to stay away from, and then have a check-in every 10 days, every 5 days, right? And this is a tried and tested methodology of improving. If you want to get anything done, even with the things that you want to do, the 3 things you want to improve in the month of Ramadan, share that with one person. Work with each other and build that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the strength of this communication. Beautiful advice, and this is a nasiha that is tried and tested. The Sahaba would act on this as well. They would compete with one another. They would talk about their challenges and their successes. It wasn't in a means of boasting, but it was in a means of ukhuwa and motivating each other to do more good. Is that a hand or a... Okay. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاكم الله خير شيخ.
جزاكم الله خيرا شيخ سلام وبارك الله فيكم. Thank you so much for coming and for honoring us by coming. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from you and provide your steps and your effort. آمين. يعني إن شاء الله local benefits and very beneficial speech, and especially ما شاء الله to use our phone in a good way to help us to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instead of wasting our time because of the video. I mean, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from evil, and it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thank you so much, and have a good day.